my rules, big moves. Y'all heavy on the tweeting. I'll disappear a whole season like, who said they looking for me? I'ma make you wait for it. Count down for me. 5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome back to Hold My Heels, the power of unapologetic living. If you are still catching up, the podcast is moved to every second and fourth Monday because while your girl loves you, I need to honor why I wanted to do this podcast. Throughout my dissertation process, I came across the unsurprising evidence that there were not very many Black women who were considered experts or the canon in academic research spaces. So I began hunting for them because if my dissertation was on Black women scholars had to be the voice I amplified, right? So I always knew that this podcast and ultimately my book would hold as many Black women scholars as I could find. I've curated my social media spaces to consistently find these amazing women, and I wanted to share them here in a podcast format. So that is why I went to twice a month. This gives me time to research, evaluate, and synthesize thoughts, ideas, and knowledge, and I promise we'll all be better for it. I also want to be able to fully immerse myself in people's work and not feel like I'm doing light research work. As I grow as a woman and as a person, I want to make sure that I am becoming the best me. And so this podcast, while it is entertaining, it is also supposed to be for enrichment of both of our lives. This is ultimately me talking to my friends about things that interest me and about things I'm passionate about. And so for me, when I say that this is part of my sister circle, that is what I mean. I am allowing you into the most intimate of spaces with me and my thoughts, because I do know that a lot of the things that I talk about as I grow in my career journey and in my personal life, you know, it can be taken out of context at some point, or somebody could feel a way about it and, you know, whatever. And so I want to be able to stand on whatever I say on this podcast. And I want to be able to say, this is not my original thought. This has been researched. It has been proven. It is a part of the fabric of who we are as humans, as Americans, as Black women. And these are our lived experiences and they should be honored. So thank you for really showing up and appreciating that I have moved back into this space. My best friend, Danica, is probably extremely excited right now because she told me 6 months ago, girl, you better not do a weekly podcast. And I was like, I got it. So I have to honor who I am and I have to honor why I wanted to do this. And I know that I've gotten feedback where people have said, you know, the research, you know, we appreciate it, but we don't necessarily need to know their names. And I want to say their names because I believe that Black women scholars' names are not said enough. We do not give them air enough. We do not breathe life into them enough. And I want this space as a Black woman who aspires to be a scholar in this field to be a place and a vessel that is pouring into other Black women scholars and future Black women scholars. So let's get into it. You know how as Black women will get hurt by a man or the man and immediately have like 3 extra degrees, all the certifications in a new area. We'll buy a new house, a car, we'll vacation like we're Pablo Escobar. You know, we buying all the guac. If it can get guac on it, we buying it. And if it's not guac, it's queso. And if it's not queso, it's sour. It's whatever's extra. You know, the people come to the table and they be like, well, that's going to be extra. And I got it, because that's how we do when we feel like we need to stun on these people. Right. And so sometimes when we get hurt and after we've upgraded, you know, somebody, we'll do something like start a podcast and start writing a book, you know, crazy stuff like that. Do you know how we do that? Like, no, seriously, I'm asking you because that's my trauma response. And I, you know, my therapist works hard, but my trauma works harder. Trauma's not funny. Okay. It's not. So I didn't ask you last week, so I'll ask you this week. You going to therapy, friend? Okay, good. You're going to therapy. Are you implementing the stuff that the therapist said? Because it ain't no point going on there and wasting your money if you're not going to do what the woman said to do. Okay, you are. Okay. I believe you. So let's talk about it. So last week I talked about how sometimes we have spiritual anorexia because we're pouring into other people and we don't pour into ourselves. And then we get to a point where we're just like, you know what? I'm ready to eat because they don't appreciate me starving myself for them to be able to, grow. And now understand, I am in no shape, form, or fashion comparing us pouring ourselves to somebody else and not taking care of ourselves into actual anorexia. It is a phrase. Anorexia is a very heavy disorder. And if you or someone is experiencing that, I suggest that you find a good doctor, a good nutritionist, and a therapist or a psychiatrist in order to help you with that, because it is very serious. So I'm not making light of that situation at all. I just think that it is a great way to talk about it. And it was part of research from a Black woman and from one of her study participants who talked about that and used that phrasing. I want us to remember those of us who are allies here and accomplices and co-conspirators and disruptors. In Black culture, a lot of times we take words that have meaning in the very dominant culture world and use them in ways that don't necessarily always make sense to those who are outside of our culture. So you will hear a lot of that throughout the podcast. And I just wanted to take that quick little commercial break to add that in, because I know I have people here who are not necessarily part of the culture. You are trying to be part of the support system around us. And I just want to make sure that you understand some of the colloquialisms that we say. Now, this quote frequently comes to mind when I think about change. Maya Angelou said, "The need for change bulldozed a road down the center of my mind." So if you've ever felt like you have poured into something else or somebody else, and then you just go wait a minute, I'm changing somebody else's life, but I'm not changing my own life. It does bulldoze in your mind. It's just a machine coming for it. It's what am I going to do? How am I going to do it? So today's complete episode, we'll discuss why you're pouring into everybody else in detriment to yourself, and why when you're sick and tired of doing so, you go hard in the paint on your revenge body or your accolade grasp or your financial upping. And I know that I joked earlier that I didn't know what it was called, but I do, because who am I? The well, actually friend, right? So as I was doing research, I used ChatGPT because I couldn't get my thoughts together. And I said, what is the syndrome called when you try to better yourself after a traumatic event? Because I was I know somebody else has coined this, because there's no original thought in the world and somebody has already done it. And I was there's no need for me to try to reinvent the wheel when I know it's here. Yes, I could have put it in Google. And when I did not get the right answer. So that is when I went to something that was a little bit more exhaustive. That's my plug for generative AI. Everybody ain't got to use it. Everybody ain't got to like it. But please don't sound like one of the people who talked about the internet and how it was going to send us all to hell. Okay? Let's be so for real. All right. Is it bad in some ways? Yes. Is it good in other ways? Absolutely. So what the good generative AI told me was that this is basically a trauma response. So it is called post-traumatic growth, or PTG. And I was ooh, that's something. And I said, but that doesn't feel like it is the end. I felt like it was more. And I bet you won't believe where this issue, it's a bigger problem from. You're not going to ever guess it. So I'm going to just tell you, post-traumatic growth is also part of post-traumatic slave syndrome, which is from the generational remakeup of our bodies and our DNA in response to the trauma that our ancestors experienced during slavery. One of those things is, are you ready for this? The strong Black woman schema. I said, well, look at God in this full circle moment. How post-traumatic slave syndrome pushes us to fight against the stereotypes and to run from the trauma and harm that was endured by our ancestors. And now it manifests itself in post-traumatic growth. Whenever you experience some trauma event, you just burst into something new. And so as I did the research on this, I was oh, I love it. I love this. Like, I love being able to put a name to this and to be able to recognize it. Because I feel like when we can name something, we're able to say, yep, full stop. This is trauma. I need to process it and I need to deal with it in a healthy way. Because as you will see, post-traumatic growth can be beneficial, but it can also be harmful at the same time. And so I was like, well, this will be great. So this ultimately ties back into the schema I identified in my dissertation. So if you did not listen to last week's, the Superwoman Schema by Dr. Cheryl L. Woods Gitscombe, she focuses on, these 5 types of Superwoman schema. And last week we talked about the need to help other people. This week we're going to talk about the characteristics of determination to succeed despite limited resources. And we're going to look at how post-traumatic growth spurs this mindset. Now, these are 2 different ideas. The determination to succeed despite limited resources. I think as Black people, a lot of times we don't have access to a lot of the things that we need in order to be successful. And so we rise above in spite of, right? And we show people, I can do what I need to do. I'm going to be the most qualified. I'm going to be the most decorated. I'm going to be all these things because I have to fight against all these stereotypes that people have about me. And that's okay to an extent, but then that's where the post-traumatic growth comes in, because you're doing it because you've experienced trauma and hurt and harm that you're not processing, and you're not allowing to your mind and your body to fully release and do something with it. So I want to take us to where I got the information about post-traumatic growth. So in 2023, in a journal article for Frontiers in Psychology, Doctors Dorothy Chin, Amber Smith Clapman, and Gail E. Wyatt, they talk about how race-based trauma and post-traumatic growth work together. And in their journal article, they define post-traumatic growth, or PTG, as a construct that attempts to capture the positive psychological change that may ensue after a traumatic experience, where an individual experiences deep questioning, deconstruction, and reconstruction of themselves and their life. Pause right there. Did you hear that? A traumatic event where you step back and you deeply question who you are, you deconstruct that image of you, and then you reconstruct it. So it's basically like your body being like, I don't know who they think they is. I don't know who they thought I was, but I'm going to show them who I am. Trauma response. You're trying to prove something to somebody who does not give a damn. Right? That sat heavy with me. Like, I was like, oh my. Like, yes, I'm growing from this. But at what cost? Like, what am I running from in this growth? And so they also talked about how there are typically 5 areas that one will grow in, more meaningful, like grow in and manifest in. And so the first one is more meaningful relationships, a greater appreciation for life, an increased sense of personal strength, deeper spirituality, and a recognition of new directions and goals for one's life. So I'm gonna put that in sister girl terms for us, okay? Increased sense of personal strength. That revenge body, post-traumatic growth, right? Deeper spirituality. You gonna get in tune with yourself. You're gonna start manifesting. You're gonna start journaling. You're gonna start pouring into yourself. You're gonna do a vision board. Post-traumatic growth. You have a greater appreciation for life. You're going to travel. You're going to do the things that you always said you wanted to do. You're going to pour into yourself. You're going to get a new makeover. You're going to pop out on them. Sometimes you got to pop out on it. You know what? Never mind. Post-traumatic growth, right? You're going to have more meaningful relationships. You start cutting people off. You start tightening your circle. Post-traumatic growth. you decide that you have a recognition of new directions and goals for one's life, you go out there and you get another degree. You go out there and you earn another title, another award. You go hard in the paint in your professional life. Post-traumatic growth. Like, ladies, even when they're gone and we're doing better for ourselves, are we doing better for ourselves? Now, mind you, after my second marriage, I definitely was getting my revenge body because, like, I'm not supposed to be out here in my 40s looking like I can't pull them, okay? That's what I said to myself. But really and truly, it was about, there were things that were said to me, things that were done that weren't necessarily done to me, but done in a way where it was like, I questioned, oh, I got to pop out on you. I got to show you who I am. I got to show you what this is about. Bet I can do that. And that's fine. But did I do it to an unhealthy extent sometimes? Yes. And we will talk about that. Now that I've put it into terms, I want you to think about this. Studies show that post-traumatic growth may be more important for supporting well-being after trauma than reducing post-traumatic symptoms. So it's good. It's a good thing. Being able to grow from a situation and better yourself is great. But are you overdoing it? Right? Because y'all be overdoing it. And when I say y'all, I mean me. Right? So, I want us to sit with that for a second. So we're going to sit in a little bit of silence because I want you to think about a time when post-traumatic growth could have been the best thing that happened to you, and what traumatic event was it tied to, and how did you change your life so that you wouldn't do it again? So, okay, you got it? Good. Now, I want us to think about this. In the next research that I did, it was in a master thesis entitled When Being Strong Hurts, Trauma in the Strong Black Woman Stereotype. This was written by Cynthia Nicole White, and she wrote about how the strong Black woman stereotype manifests in 3 factors: mask of strength, self-reliance or strength, and caretaking. I know I've talked a lot about the Superwoman schema throughout the episodes this season, and I like these words because they feel a little bit more diggy into my soul. Like, I feel like it actually poked me because, like, I could relate to these ideas. So you know how much I love shared language and common knowledge. So I'm going to break these down for you. Mask of strength refers to emotional invulnerability and hiding one's struggles. How many times as a woman, or even as a human, have you been hurt and you decide, nobody will ever hurt me that way again? I will never show that much of myself again. I will never be that vulnerable again. And you walk in that. And that's how you decide to grow in response to the trauma, right? So the second one is self-reliance and strength, the practice of trying to be strong and self-sufficient. When I get to your row, just move your feet because I stepped all over myself in these, right? That idea that I don't need nobody or nothing, I can do this by myself. We've all been there, right? And then the last one is the caretaking. And, we talked about that. We talked about it. You start caring for other people and you emphasize helping other people. And I'm going to step on a specific group of people's feet right now. Hey, educators, How often have you been hurt in your personal life and you go to work and you go hard in the paint for a kid? Because it's easier to help them grow and help them overcome and achieve than it is to deal with, you can say, I helped that one kid. I brought this into their life. Like, you're like, I'm going to do these things. I'm going to do this. Post-traumatic growth. You don't owe anybody anything except for you, right? So if you want to pop out and show these people, do it, but do it for you consistently. Don't get to the point where you're pouring into somebody over and over and over again and you'd be like, wait a minute, no, I got to show them who I really am. Show them who you really are all the time. Like, as I started to read this and think about this, I was like, how much time have I spent building other people's legacies and forgotten about my own dreams and desires, right? I'm so busy trying to, upgrade everybody that I'm not upgrading myself, that I'm putting myself on pause, that I'm doing, what needs to be done because, I want to make sure that everybody around me is eating, but I'm not eating. So this was like so powerful to me and for me because, like, to think about post-traumatic growth, an attempt to capture the positive psychological change that may ensue after a traumatic experience, where I deeply question who I am, I deconstruct that, and then I reconstruct myself. People who know me know that I love the Phoenix, not the city. I've only been once and I was younger, but the bird, because the Phoenix is all about, burning down into the ashes and then growing back powerful and strong. And I have leaned into that as a person. I've leaned into it so much that I have a tattoo of a Phoenix. And as I thought about the post-traumatic growth syndrome, I thought about, why am I aligning myself with a bird whose entire existence is catching on fire, becoming ash, and then growing again? Baby, that sounds like struggle. And I'm trying my hardest to not struggle, but I am aligning myself with a Phoenix. You know what? One of my friends told me something and all I could do was laugh. She was like, you know what? You're so smart, you're an idiot. And I was like, right? I mean, I'm pretty at least, but I am dumb. I am so dumb at times. Because for me, as a strong Black woman, a Phoenix just resonated with me, right? Because I have burned so many times and risen from the ashes stronger, mightier. But I've never thought about the last part of that. It's always been, okay, you want to set me on fire? I'm going to just get bigger and better. I just want to get bigger and better. Sometimes it's about me setting on fire so I can get bigger and better, not trauma setting me on fire, right? That's what the understanding of post-traumatic growth is for me. It's about, it's okay to grow from trauma, but don't let that be the catalyst. Yes, traumatic things are going to happen. Have you met me? Traumatic things happen a lot, but that's just, it's life. And it's traumatic to me. It's probably not traumatic to other people, because I can be a little, como se dice, dramatic. But that's just who I am. And that's what I had to understand. So instead of waiting until somebody tears their panties with you, and then you gotta, get your revenge body, or you gotta glow up, or you gotta do whatever, Do it anyway. Do it because. Don't do it in spite of. So now there are so many stories, lived experiences that I can tell you that, baby, we don't have enough time. We don't. Because when I tell you I have been set ablaze so many times that I do come back stronger, but each time there is a, I don't come back right. Like there's a little piece of me that's a little off. And so like I can't be set on fire too many more times. But I'm going to give you one about why I am the way I am. Okay. So I'm a person who I want to see the good in people, but I also see people for who they are, which is a really hard thing for me. Right. And, I don't befriend people easily. And so for me, a lot of times when I do have a friend, I kind of pour into them a lot, and I'm there for them and I listen to them and I try to just, be a listening ear, because sometimes all we need is a listening ear. So I also do that in relationships, with the male people. And sometimes the male people are a little bit more dramatic than I am, but that's a story for another day. So I'm a strong Black woman, right? And I had a situation where I was in a relationship where I poured into this man consistently. He did not work full time a lot of the time in our relationship because I wanted to better him. And I wanted to be able to allow him the space to get better, because like I had my degrees and I was doing the things that I wanted to do, and I was, chasing my dreams, and I wanted him to be able to chase his dreams too. And so if you've ever seen the movie Failure to Launch, that's kind of where we ended up. And so when we ended, I decided that all of the things that I ever wanted to do, I was going to do, because I had stopped doing things because I felt like I can't do anymore because he's 2 steps behind me, right? So I got to let him catch up with me before I make another step, which I'm sure my dad was like rolling over in his grave. Like, are you nuts? Like, you're my only child. You're not stopping for nobody. Like, keep going. Like, my ancestors are just like face palming, like, girl, this is not what we are here supporting you for. But they stuck with me. They stuck beside me. And so when the relationship was over, I literally went into, I was required to have long hair. I'm gonna cut all my hair off. I love short hair. I've always loved short hair. I could not wear things that showed my legs or showed any skin. And if you've met me recently, seems to not be a problem anymore. But it's because that's who I've always been. Like, I love who I am, and I love being girly, and I love dressing up, and I love wearing heels, and I love my short hair, and I love like all of these things about myself that I put on hold. And I finally understood, as a woman, I can be extremely feminine, and I can live life and as air quotes soft as I want to be, and be a strong woman, because it takes balance. I don't have to be either or. I can be and. And so as I have grown to understand that who I am as a person is a very soft and loving and caring person who wants to build other people up, because that's who I am at rest. That is who I am as a leader. That is who I am as a friend. That is who I am as just a human. But I am also, I will cut you. Okay. The moment I feel like you using me or you are walking all over me, you will meet a side of me that most people have never seen. Like, there are very few people in this life besides my kids that can say they have ever heard me yell. There are very few people besides my kids, you'll notice the theme here, that can say that they have seen me mad. What most people don't understand is that when I get mad and frustrated, I get quiet. I'm not going to say nothing. I'm not going to make a face. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to sit there and just look like, oh, they don't know I'm cray-cray. Like, completely cray-cray. Like, not to tell my family business, but my mama did beat up a woman at the altar during church, during altar calls. So like, it's not too far removed, right? That is a story that I will have to tell one day. My mom is a biochemist. She is like the smartest person I know. But the pastor was like, the doors of the church are open. And this woman went up to the front and my mama walked up behind her and mollywopped that woman in church over her man. And I said, okay, listen, on site means on site. God knows her heart, I think. But she's the sweetest person you'll ever meet until you mess with her. And I had to realize that the reason she is that way is because she has had to grow out of so many traumatic events herself that when you find, like, she's just covered herself in quiet and happy-go-lucky until she's not anymore. And I don't necessarily want to be that person. Like, I want to be the person where people understand, do not play with her. She has your back, but she will definitely push you down the stairs if you push her too far. I will never push anybody down the stairs. It is definitely a colloquialism. If somebody says I push them down the stairs, they are probably lying. They are lying. You know what? It's neither here nor there. So I want us to think about that. Like, I hope that this episode really pushed you into what am I growing from? Like, what trauma am I dealing with that I'm trying to grow from that is actually killing me, right? That's actually pushing me into the very bad sides of post-traumatic growth. Because remember, it can be good, but when you overdo it, it's bad. It's like if you eat one Haagen-Dazs ice cream bar, it's good. If you eat 3 in one sitting, it is bad. It tastes good, it feels good, but it's bad. And it's bad especially if you need insulin, because then you have to keep giving yourself insulin. And I'm just telling you, don't do it. Okay? Everything in moderation, especially growth related to trauma. Okay? Now, I've said it a few times, but I'm going to spell this out for you. Being a strong Black woman is a trauma response that we need to let go of. You deserve softness, ease, and to be okay in that. We are taught as Black women that we cannot be, air quotes, weak or vulnerable because we don't have the luxury of that. Baby, that's not a luxury. That's called being a human. And to hell with all those people that told us that you can't cry, you can't show emotion. That is why we are where we are. So the next time something happens, if you want to cry, cry. I think there's a whole song that says, it's my party, I'll cry if I want to. Cry. Like, that's a human emotion. Crying is okay. Being soft in a moment is okay. Being weak in a moment is okay. Like, what reward do we get for being strong besides more trauma? I didn't think that. I think we had nothing else. So let it go. Release and pour into you consistently. It is okay to be human. It is okay to help people while you help yourself. I said in the last episode, put your mask on first, and I meant that. Like, you don't have to be the world's strongest woman. I'm not saying fold like a paper towel, but I'm just saying, do a little bit, be a little softer for me, just once or twice. And I'm going to be softer for you. All right. Now, I need you to remember this. And I'm going to say this, and it warms my heart. My daughter is like my biggest op and cheerleader. And she remembers the closing phrase from the podcast, even though I can't remember it. And I am so happy that her and her friends listen to my podcast and that they are growing up to be beautiful young ladies who love themselves and love each other. And so for her, I'm going to say this, and I want y'all to understand, like, somebody asked me why I say the same thing every time. And it's because, like, after the second time my daughter heard it, it is because she literally memorized it from my voice. And that meant a lot to me. Like, she's never read it, but just from her hearing it, she memorized it. So that is why I say it, because it's a way that I can connect with my daughter and I can connect with you. And if it resonated with her at 12, I hope that it's resonating with everybody else as well. Remember that every step you take is a testament to your strength and grace. Keep striding forward, hold your head up high, and never forget you've got someone to hold your heels when it's needed. I hope you conquer your world today. Until next time, stay empowered, stay you, and slay in your own personal way.
Yeah, I'm gonna make you pay for it.